the mask is kind of coming off and it's slipping,
Mhm.
and it's starting to become clear that there is, because of, the DOGE employees all being kind of like, incel-y neo-Nazis, and, and then you have these big names, Andreessen and Sam Altman and, JD Vance himself, worshiping total like ideologues like Curtis Yarvin. Like it becomes clear that like this is about Christian nationalism. This is like fascistic tech fascism, and that they're not really hiding that, and they are still playing into every single right wing trope that kind of got them in power in the first place. And so Elon tweeted recently, this was on the yesterday. The real reason so many Democrats are upset about entitlements, Social Security, medical, etc. Medical, bitch, you don't even know what your terms are. Fraud investigations is that they are using your taxpayer money as handouts to attract and retain illegal immigrants, their future voters. That's what it's all about. Truth. So again, every accusation is a confession. He's saying the Democrats are worried about their future voters, but ultimately he's telling you that the political project here is to actually go after anyone who might vote against their interests. This is about playing into the great replacement theory, whether it's overtly racist or whether it's just about minoritarian rule, and saying, yeah, I'm gonna do an ethno state. I'm gonna do a white nationalism. I'm gonna do a democracy is not even that great. JD Vance was in Munich, and he was like, if your democracy can be hacked by Russia, maybe it wasn't so good to begin with. And he was saying that about Romania.
Yeah.
But the US was also attacked by Russian counterintelligence and whatnot, and our voting systems. And it's like, so isn't kind of the real giving up the ghost, isn't the real ideology underpinning this just a deeply undemocratic sort of fascistic mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things JD Vance did in Europe was to call out how Europe is one of the biggest enemies of free speech right now, of course, right? Free speech in his mind, meaning the ability to say any like fascist Nazi thing that you can think of and, be able to get away with it, right? But I think on your broader point, like, one of the things that, or Curtis Yarvin's kind of broader ideology is that the United States needs to become a monarchy, but a monarchy shaped around a corporation, right? Where the president is essentially a CEO, and where democratic rights are revoked. Peter Thiel, for example, has been echoing what Curtis Yarvin has been saying for over a decade. He is someone who has explicitly argued against women having the right to vote. He's argued against democratic rights. He supports this authoritarian fascist project, as do an increasing number of these powerful figures in the tech industry, and they don't even really try to hide it anymore. You pointed out that tweet from Elon Musk during the election, especially after he had, kind of made his support for Donald Trump very clear. He was frequently saying that this is the most important election of our lifetime, because if the Democrats win, then they will enfranchise all of these illegals and they will all vote for the Democrats, and the Republicans will never win again, right? This is the way that they see this, and this is the way that they, talk about democracy and how it works. And I think it's very clear, both not just from the statements of people in the tech industry, but also looking at the long-term project of the Republican Party, and also, the things that the Heritage Foundation wants to achieve, is really to continue to roll back those democratic rights in the United States, a country whose democratic system is already deeply flawed, to make sure that it becomes even more difficult for the Republicans to lose power into the future.
Yeah, and we need to name that. I mean, I think the other thing about this whole great replacement theory, like it obviously it's like great replacement theory is anti-Semitic at its heart, obviously deeply racist. But the other unspoken thing that we don't really talk about is it's about labor. It's about having an exploitable workforce, and that if you enfranchise people, if you give them a pathway to citizenship, it's really not that they're going to vote Democrat, because that doesn't bear out. But it really is like we would have to pay, whether it's farm workers, day laborers, whomever it is, we'd have to pay them a livable and fair wage that would be competitive with everybody else. Suddenly we've got, and this is why unions are going to matter, but like, it's about not having an exploited workforce. And there's no greater, sort of evidence of that than Elon wanting to go to war over the H-1B visas, because it's like, oh, no, that's my exploited workforce. I need to be able to continue to exploit workforces, but I'm not in agriculture, so I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. And even when you look at the H-1B, visa and how that is used by people like Musk, when he gutted Twitter, a lot of the people who were left were people who were on H-1B visas, because if they had left that job, they basically would have had to leave the country, right? Because of the way that that visa is set up. As well, what we saw last year, Tesla laid off, I think it was over 10,000 workers. And at the same time that it was engaging in those layoffs, it was requesting an increase to the amount of H-1B visas that would be available to it to bring in more foreign workers on these restrictive terms to replace the workers that it was laying off, right? The American workers.
Yeah.
So we see very clearly that Elon Musk engages in this, and all these people do, right? This is kind of very typical capitalist practice.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing is like, it's like, we also have to move beyond this, like, they're a threat to democracy. No, they don't believe in democracy. That's it.
Yeah.
I think what you said, like, they believe in revoking democratic rights. They believe in revoking civil rights as a part of.
It's also like,
yeah.
They have this really warped view of the future, right? And what the future should be and how we achieve it. They think that there is an existential threat to humanity, and that the only way we are going to combat that is to develop very advanced, AI systems that potentially we will eventually be able to merge with or turn our brains into computers or whatever, and that we need to colonize other planets so that if something ever happens to Earth, we have, this kind of colony
What do
set
they
up on
think is
Mars.
the existential threat, though? Is it climate change? And they're just like,
No.
but we can't stop. Yeah. So what is it? What's the threat? People having too much power?
Asteroids hitting the Earth, or AI becoming too powerful and we
They're
don't
the ones who
control
are
it. I
empowering
know.
AI. What the
You could see how it doesn't make sense, right? Like, but this is like their kind
isn't
of
that so tech?
techno-religious worldview.
Exactly. Techno-religious worldview, but which is, when you have a hammer, everything's a nail. We're going to create a problem or point out a problem that simply doesn't exist. To your point about this Brian, whatever the hell his name was, the guy who wants to live forever. Like, that's not a problem. Like, he's got shirts that are like, don't die. Get a doctor, get preventative medicine, like, get affordable treatment. That's how you don't die. I mean, it's a perfect example of wasteful money. And these are the people who are telling the government that they're wasting and they're trying to get to Mars. The fuck? You're wasting? You're trying to get to Mars. You can't even take advantage of the natural resources without destroying them that planet Earth gave you. You're telling us you want to go to fucking Mars? Fuck you, man. Like, seriously, that's so annoying.
That guy, Brian Johnson, who you mentioned, there was a story recently that one of the drugs he was taking to like suppress his aging or whatever, new clinical studies came out showing that actually it makes you age faster. So he had been taking this drug that did the total opposite. But like, speaking of what you're talking about with like Mars, right? This is their justification for why they need to capture so much wealth, right? And so much political power. They say, we need to be some of the richest people in the world because we are saving humanity, and all you dumbass idiots do not even realize it. So we need to take away your democratic rights. Like, this is the kind of way that they would self-justify it, right? So that we can save the rest of you basically from yourselves, right? And from these other existential threats.
I think this is my question. Like, do they have thoughts of what happens to the masses? Like, do they delight in the idea that folks will die? Do they delight in the idea that folks will be just sort of like workers eating their, like, 3 pellets a day and kind of go home, or to whatever sort of like, sleep tray they're allowed to rent at the company's expense? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What is their plan for the masses of people?
I would say they largely don't care or don't think a lot about the masses of people, right? They're very focused on themselves and humanity as, this kind of abstract concept, not as actual, 8 billion people who inhabit this planet. And that is quite clear when you read like the philosophies that their ideas are based on, things like, long-termism in particular, this term that they have increasingly kind of embraced, where, it's this very utilitarian philosophy that basically says, people today and people living a million years from now are basically of equal value. And so if we can take actions today, even if they harm people who are alive today, that will increase the likelihood that people will be alive in millions of years and that will have expanded to the stars, then that is worth, the pain that people will feel today because we have guaranteed humanity's future. And like, this is the really warped way that they see it.
Yeah, I think that the like, it's why I don't like when people call themselves like futurists. I'm like, I don't even know what that fucking means. And I hate that term. I think it's really corny. And I'm also not a big space person. Sorry. I'm really pro telescope or like any, I know James Webb was apparently like a homophobe, but like, I love that thing. I think it's great. It's really dope.
Just rename it,
just rename. Exactly. But I love the images. It's beautiful. I love looking
I'm totally
at space.
supportive of like sending robots into space. Like, let's figure out what the dirt on Mars is like and take some pictures of stuff. We don't need to put people up there. I'm sorry.
No. But I think that's exactly, you put your finger on it, which is like, we're the chosen ones. We're going to be the ones to get us to Mars or do these other things. And everyone must suffer so that we can do that. So that we can, plant some potatoes on Mars, like, Matt Damon, and have them all go to and then
or
be
we
like,
can even dream
we did
that will one day
it.
happen. Yeah.
We did it. I love this red uninhabitable planet with no water. Shut up. Earth is
I was
so
talking
much.
to people who are like more, I don't know, up on the space stuff, right? And DOGE has started targeting NASA. And one of the things, and Elon Musk has started to say, like, the moon mission needs to be thrown away and we just need to focus on Mars. But if you talk to people who actually understand this stuff, they will tell you that if we're going to Mars, the mission to return to the moon is essential because there's so much learning that comes out of returning to the moon before going back to Mars. And they were like, it's probably because Elon Musk and SpaceX have this contract to deliver this lunar lander that they have not demonstrated. And like, it's pretty clear they're not going to deliver on time, but they don't want like to have to admit that. So if the program gets canceled, then they never have to admit that they don't actually like have this thing ready or it's not going to be ready on time.
They don't have a lunar lander ready?
Yeah.
You can't even land on the moon? That should be like, this is like, there's gradations of like what you need to be able to do. That's like a blue belt situation. Like, Mars is black belt, whatever, or something like that. You got to get to the moon first. What's wrong with you? What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuation room. Do